Welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Known Classics. This episode number 1957, episode number 1851. Got 2 hour trades from 2 event crossovers. One that came out just this year, though it kind of started late last year. We actually have Devil's Reign. Yep, the trade that collects the main event for this crossover and the Omega one-shot. Now, one thing that has been, this tease for years. This mostly been building the pages of Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run. Which, fun fact, he brings along this artist for this run. You could say this whole event is just a continuation of his run for Daredevil. Mostly, anyways. So Will Smith asks his law of no superheroes allowed in New York City. Like, there's a ban on him. Where he does something ballsy. He orders the police release his version of the Thunderbolts. Yes, he survives Thunderbolts. A concept he basically started using. He basically was brought to his attention thanks to a couple of different things. One, of course, being actually the first person to introduce him to the concept of Thunderbolts was actually Baron Zemo in the Mighty Rousey run for Punisher, and then was brought back as a miniseries for King Black, and now it's a police force for him, where it's headed by U.S. Agent, a.k.a. Marvel's #1 jerk. That's simply U.S. Agent. He's the only superhero who really worked for them. Now, what do? They arrest Reed Richards and Susan Richards of the Fantastic Four. They also arrest Iron Man. Yes, they arrest Iron Man just for being a superhero. And they attempt to arrest Miles, but he gets away no problem. Surprisingly, now here's the weird thing. Luke Cage is a big player in this event. Daredevil is kind of a player, but mostly put the biggest players you got here. Well, Captain America's also arrest him, but no, they can't. He gets away. But if you think about it, for this whole event, like for here on the hero side, who are the big players? Luke Cage, Daredevil, Elektra, and that's it. Just these 3. They're the only ones who basically play a role. Now you might be asking, where is Thor? Where is the Hulk? Where is Peter Parker Spider-Man? Because clearly on the cover, that's actually Ben Reilly. Yeah, there is an explanation why Ben Reilly is here. Because at the time this is coming out, we had something called, well, it's actually not forgotten yet because basically it was relaunched just the start of this year, the Beyond story arc for Amazing Spider-Man. That's why he's here. Where's Peter in all this? He's in a coma. As for where Thor and Hulk are, they're off-world, probably dealing with the Banners of War story arc. Possibly, yes. Surprisingly, I think, okay, so here's something really weird, though. Spider-Woman gets a tie into this particular event, but she hasn't paid the main miniseries. You're probably thinking, that's weird. Why the heck would Chip Zdarsky allow the writer of Spider-Woman to have her book be a tie-in to the book, and yet she does not appear in the main book itself? Yeah, that's kind of weird. Also, here's another absentee of this whole event. She-Hulk! Yeah, she's nowhere to be seen here. Nope, nowhere to be seen. Excuse me, you're probably thinking, okay, who else is absent? They do bring up briefly the Champions. They briefly appear in this mini-series, where they are working with the Rhino in order to avoid the drones. But halfway through the mini-series, Will Smith's taking full control of New York. And here's the thing. Luke Cage does not like the politics of Wilson Fisk, so he proceeds to run against him in the upcoming election, and he wins. Wilson Fisk is out of office now. Now, here's the thing. Wilson Fisk has been in office in Marvel Comics for 5 years at this point in time. Yes, by the time this event happens, he had been in office since it was the issue just before Daredevil got resumed to its triple digit numbering for the first time since 2010. That was actually the first time since 2009 that he'd been basically with the triple digit numbering, which was around very long. It was only around for like about 20 issues before it got relaunched, done by Charles Shaw. So this is going on now for 5 years. And by the end of the event, Luke Cage is in office and Will Smith is out of office. Now, one thing big about this event that this plays a small role in the story is the whole thing of Daredevil's identity being a secret. And of course, they bring up what happened. Basically, you could say this is something that also it's like Zardesky has followed up with some stuff basically that was established by Charles Shaw. Like the whole thing was this being the kingpin of crime. Shaw did that. Daredevil's identity was secret again. That's something also Charles Shaw did too. Yeah, pretty much. He did explain to everybody the reason behind why no one remembers who the heck he is. It's because the children of the Purple Man wiped everybody's memory of him being Daredevil. The only person who knows he is Daredevil is Foggy Nelson. He also runs this miniseries Kristen McDuffie, his ex-girlfriend, who does Kiss in the miniseries. And about the halfway point of this miniseries, issue 3, Will's-Face takes a finger of Zebediah Kilgrave, aka the Purple Man, and he uses it against himself. He says, "Remember," and then the issue ends with Matt Murdock. Yeah, now he remembers that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Weirdly enough, Ty married his wife, who he had just married in the final issue of Daredevil, I think it was volume 6. He had just married her, and she barely plays a role in the story. Like, she's mostly there as like a minor character in the story. If you think about it, she plays more bigger role in Devil's Reign XMen than this book. Anybody thinking, okay, where's Doctor Strange in this whole thing is going on? He's dead. Yeah, Doctor Strange is dead, which comes back to the question, why isn't Cleostra, why isn't this smoking hot, why isn't this beautiful wife involved in this thing? That's a really good question. There's no reason why she's not involved in the story. Either that, or I think maybe the miniseries, that one's coming at the same time as this one, so that's probably the reason why Doctor Strange's not here. Okay, what about Black Panther? Well, he's probably dealing with whatever's going on in this book at this point in time. Okay. Captain Marvel, they mentioned she's actually off-world. That's just by sheer coincidence, she's actually off-world. I'm thinking though, like, at the time this event came out, which actually was early this year, like, yeah, I think that part's actually correct in that part. Okay. So, if you think about it, who is like the most powerful superhero in this whole crossover? Because a lot of the heavy hitters are not here. Okay, so who is the strongest hero by physical strength? Obviously Luke Cage. Iron Fist himself, Danny Rand, who's actually retired being Iron Fist. Yes, it's a bit of an odd thing for him. He's no longer Iron Fist now for some reason. The current person who was Swordmaster, he's currently Iron Fist right now. He's retired, and they tried to arrest him, like, hey, I'm retired, so you can't do anything about it. Though, by the end of the event, Will's Fist is out of power, and, well, instead of facing justice for his crimes, he's apparently allowed to leave the country with his wife. Yeah, that's a plot thing that's going to go back to haunt Chip Zdarsky. But with Luke Cage is the mayor of New York now. Yep, he won his election bid, and he does bring up now his wife Jessica Jones, who does play a role in the story. And he was asked by Shocker, hey, put on these power hands or collars. He's like, crushes, like, screw you, and he proceeds to beat the crap out of Shocker. I'm like, wow. I'm like, seriously, Luke Cage, that's the second Spider-Man you basically beat the crap out of. First it was Electro, now it's Shocker. And of course also Crossbones, a Captain America villain involved in this story. As a member of the Thunderbolts, which he has been with Thunderbolts, so at least Zdarsky remembers that. He was part of the run when Jeff Parker was basically writing Thunderbolts. So he was on the book very long. He was on the book just from the start of the Heroic Age run. And it wrapped up, his run ended with Shadowland. Not very long tenure. So, Luke Cage gets fed up with the version of the most established by Will Smith. So he proceeds to break into the warehouse and proceeds to, even though he's the mayor of New York, even though he probably couldn't do this, but he's the mayor of New York he wants, he proceeds to beat the crap out of Crossbones. And then he tells, okay, you're under arrest for bribery, racketeering, a whole bunch of charges. And gets him and his associates arrested for daring. Here's the thing. Luke Cage has broken up shot a bunch of bank robbers. But apparently, the Thunderbolts, this version anyways, will start of these stupid rules they had to arrest superheroes. So Luke Cage get fed up with them. Basically, he teamed with Monica and Bo to go basically take down Thunderbolts. Though they were rebranded, and the story itself did lead, it led to the current miniseries Thunderbolts by returning writer Jim Zeb, first time since his last ongoing series ended back in 2017. I'm happy about Back Thunderbolts. The problem is it's a miniseries. That's the only big problem with it. Yep, Daredevil himself. Now, Mike Murdock. Yes, Mike Murdock. Another Chip Zdarsky thing. Yeah, this other Mike Murdock, who apparently is Butch, who is Will Smith's other son, which apparently no one knew he had until Zdarsky wrote Daredevil. Yeah, apparently Will Smith murders him because he thinks he's Matt Murdock. And then they have a funeral claiming that Matt Murdock is dead. And that kind of sets up what's currently going on in Daredevil right now. So it's like Zdarsky pretty much in a way just destroys anything established by Charles Show. Will Smith's mayor, the Mike Murdock thing, and the identity. Now the identity thing is not exactly destroyed here. But this definitely was a good story overall. I think the only fault with the story is Will Smith didn't go to jail for what he did. Yeah, that's the only fault I think a lot of people would have with the story. But it's overall a really good story. And also, at least the characters are not written to be... I do got praise Zdarsky for this. The characters know who the bad guy is. They're not blaming themselves for the bullcrap that stuff's going on. And they're actually fighting the menace of the Will Smith stuff. Yes, they're actually fighting, and we see the resistance fighting against them. We even go to the sewers again, like, wow, reminiscing Civil War 1. So you can kind of think of this as a small-scale Secret Empire done correctly. Where that's the best way you can describe Devil's Reign. It's almost like this is basically Zdarsky doing something similar to Devil's Reign to Secret Empire, but he probably liked some ideas for that. He probably didn't like the fact that superheroes were going to be really terrible. He probably hated that particular concept. Now, he clearly has a villain. Yes, a villain. Not a hero turned villain as the main villain of the story, which... If you think about it, this is probably the first time ever Wilson Fisk has ever been main villain of a crossover. Excuse me. And the second time in the past few years where we have a Spider-Man villain, actually, third time, actually, because also Norman Osborn, mind you, because he also is a Spider-Man villain. So for the past 12 years, we've had 3 Spider-Man villains become the main villain of 3 big crossovers. First was Siege with Norman Osborn, and then 9 years later with Absolute Carnage with, of course, Carnage. And then, no less than 3 years later, we have Wilson Fisk become the main villain of the story. Okay, interesting to say the least. Now, here's the strange thing. Ben Reilly barely knows who the heck Wilson Fisk even is. My only guess is Zdarsky really wanted to do... He really wanted to use Spider-Man in the story because even he realized, though, that Secret Empire, that Spider-Man stuff was barely in the crossover as it was. He probably really wanted to use Peter, but he couldn't contradict what was going on in the pages of Spider-Man Beyond. Though you could easily say this, I don't know, how about before Spider-Man Beyond? He could have done that. Nope, he just probably was told. Now in the case of that part, that was probably due to editorial mandate. That's my personal guess anyways. But it's a pretty good miniseries. I got handed to Zdarsky for that. And this also, I think, is also his very first crossover he worked on. I'm like, that's interesting. Dunn & Co's did 3. Matthew Rosenberg, you might think he has either in crossover. No, he hasn't. Zdarsky has done 1. Okay. At least you got people who's not Brian Michael Bendis doing a crossover, because if you think about it, since the Marvel concept crossovers back in 2005, he's done a good chunk of them. His last special one he ever did was Civil War 2. But yeah, I'm going to give this particular main trade of Devil's Reign, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's got pretty good artwork. Now here's the thing. I have roughly 2 more trades left to go for Devil's Reign. Devil's Reign, Villains for Hire, and Daredevil, the Woman Without Fear, which focuses on Elektra. And that's pretty much it when it comes to this crossover. Because as of right now, I have pretty much reviewed everything related to this crossover. Yeah. If you think about it, that's definitely true. Mm-hmm. Now, next one. Take a look. Just trying to look here. See how many left here. Let's see. One. Huh. Okay. I think it's more like about a couple trades left. Yeah, I think it's like just 2 trades left. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next up, we have King in Black Namor, written by Kurt Busiek. You're thinking, Kurt Busiek writing Namor? That's interesting. Yes. Also, like in the case of Double's Reign, this crossover's got two more trades I'll have to talk about. So after this one, you have King in Black Planet of the Symbiotes and King in Black Rise of the Valkyries. This is roughly a 5-issue miniseries. Now, despite being an official tie-in to King in Black, it has very little to do with King in Black. Because, mostly put, this is kind of in a way a backstory. This is Tuma's backstory. Where it focuses on young Namor, where he's with Lady Dorma. And apparently he was friends with Tuma prior to him turning evil. Also, Krang is here. Yeah, Warlord Krang. Andromeda, Krang's daughter, is seen present day. Krang, I believe, is currently deceased right now. Yes, I believe he is. Tuma has been killed off once, but he's since come back for some strange reason. Now, surprisingly, unlike other King of Black trades, where they contain just a miniseries, maybe a couple one-shots, this just contains the miniseries. Yes, Kurt Busiek does the writing, with Benjamin Dewey on the artwork. Mm-hmm. The cover art is done by Len Francis Yu and Sonny Gio. I think it's pronounced, yes. Yeah. I think it's an interesting idea to give a series for Namor. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And, of course, they also have a woman in this story who he may have attraction to, despite the fact he's pretty close to Lady Dorma. Her apparently position at this point in time is Lady in Waiting, despite the fact she's going to be married to Namor later on. And, of course, Namor's father is alive in this story. Yes, his father. Actually, more like his stepfather, because his father was a fisherman. His mother is actually in the story. Now, he refers to his he's always not his actual father, because he refers at simply Emperor. Because if it was his father, he referred to him as father. His father was a known fisherman. And he also has a nephew. He actually, for a long time, he apparently couldn't have children. Then later on, he apparently had several kids. One of them popped up in a miniseries that came after Civil War I. But the best way you can feel about this miniseries, it seems like Kurt Busiek took a lot of inspiration from Aquaman for this story. Yeah, like a little bit of inspiration from the Dan Abnett run. That's what this miniseries feels like. It feels like basically took tiny elements from the Dan Abnett run for Aquaman and just put it here, because it's Talus Undersea, and it's set before he became basically the king. And to explore how apparently Tuma was son of a chasm chief, and if I get some called the Tide, and they do have them in the trench period here, but they call it a different name for some reason. They at least have a group of creatures known as the Trench. Yeah, they don't have them in the story because that's Jeff Johns' creation, not the creation of Busiek. But that's one aspect I like about this. Even if it could read as a story, an Aquaman story, just basically put Namor here. But it basically builds up. It still keeps aspects associated with Namor, but mostly put the whole series as a flashback. It does show Namor in present day for a handful of pages, a lot of the stories, but mostly just a story focused on his past. And I do enjoy stories focused on Namor's past, because I do find quite interesting. This is probably the earliest point in his character timeline that Marvel has ever explored for Namor, because usually the earliest they explore for him is just prior to the outbreak of World War II with the miniseries Namor that came out in the 2000s, where he basically dated a surface woman for a very brief period of time who he met while he was at Coney Island. Yeah, seriously, that's basically what it is. But yeah, not much else to say with this miniseries. It's definitely good. I do recommend it if you're fans of Namor, because it feels more like a regular Namor. It's the way you also can read this book is that Kurt Busiek probably really wanted to do a Namor ongoing series, but my guess is some Marvel higher ups like no miniseries only. Yeah, they probably didn't have faith in it, but I have heard they're going to do another miniseries for him. Though I do think that she could be another ongoing because he's that interesting of a character. Yeah, some people might think of him as an Aquaman ripoff, but the thing is, he isn't. Because Namor was around for 2 more years longer than Aquaman. Aquaman's around since 1941. Namor is around since 1939. The same year we had a debut of the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond, who actually does not appear in this miniseries. Yep. But I'm going to give King of Black Namor a 9.5 out of 10. Just a really good book here. Yeah. And with this, I've covered most of the King of Black crossover. Except for, like I said, King of Black Planet of the Symbiotes and King of Black The Return of the Valkyries. Aside from these two miniseries, these two trades, I have covered most of this crossover. Most of it. Not all of it. Just, actually, wait, there is one more. Single King of Black. So basically there are 3 left now. But I'm glad I got a chance to cover this one. Yep. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for particular view. Next up is going to be Boruto. And the back Doctor Who. Okay, next video. Bye.